Right. I think we're back. For whatever reason, Facebook dropped out. But we're back. So we've looked at the four types of questions. We're now going to look at the best type of question, the best tone to ask a question, the best sequence, the best way to frame your question so that you can get the best answer and maximize the result thereof. One of the things we must know about asking questions is that if you don't ask, you don't get. If you don't ask, you don't get. Like I said at the beginning, your answer, the solution that you're looking for, is hidden behind the question that you have not asked. So if you're not asking the questions, you're not getting the answers. Many of us have heard of Dale Carnegie, and one of his most prominent books was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he gave a subtle but unique advice in that book. He said, number one, be a good listener. If you want to win friends and influence people, be a good listener. And then number two, he said, ask questions that the other person will enjoy answering. Be a good listener. Number two, ask the question that the other person will not have trouble. In fact, they will be happy to answer. Unfortunately, many of us still don't heed those advice. People generally don't ask enough questions. In fact, when you look at a survey was done or a research was done, and the outcome was that one of the most common complaints that people have in any relationship or in any interaction or in any conversation is that I wish he or she had. I wish they've asked me more questions. Or I can't believe that at the end of all of that, you didn't ask me anything. Maybe it's in an interview, maybe it's in a relationship, maybe it's in a friendship conversation. Or maybe even after your first date, and she's gone home thinking, what was the purpose of that? He didn't even ask me, or he didn't ask me enough questions. Why is it that we struggle to ask questions? Why do so many of us hold back from asking questions? Because the truth is, you know it. You know it, and I know it. You walk away from a conversation, a meeting, an interaction, and you know there are certain things you wanted to say. There's questions you wanted to ask, but for whatever reason, you just hold back. Why? Remember, if you don't ask, you don't get. So why do we hold back? Give you 4 examples of why people hold back. Number one, some people are just egocentric. Oh, they're full of themselves. They are eager to impress you with their thoughts and their stories and their ideas and their views and their this and that they are so caught up in that egocentric cloud that they didn't even think of asking any questions because they just go bum, 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 bum. So that's why some people don't ask questions. Number 2 reason why people don't ask questions or people hold back from asking questions is because some people are apathetic. They don't care enough to ask. They just can't be bothered. Or they anticipate that the answer you're going to give is not going to make any sense. It's going to be very boring. I'd rather not just pollute my intellectuals with your unqualified and unscientific answers. So they'll bother not just ask you. You know some of them. I know them. We all know them. Maybe I am one of them, actually. Maybe you are one of them. So such people, they would rather talk at you than to talk to you. They just want you to listen. Because you, having considered you, I don't think you have anything to contribute to this conversation. So just listen and let me talk, and then we'll go. Number 3, why people hold back from asking questions is because some people are overconfident in their knowledge, and they think that there's no point asking you because I already know the answer. I am the fountain of knowledge. Now, in some instances, if it is their livelihood, maybe they know it. But the truth is, no human being knows it all. So while they may have the assumption that they know it all, they know the answer, they may not. Even a fool can teach you something. Another reason why people hold back from asking questions is because some people are shy naturally. And if you want to know more about shyness, go to my YouTube channel. I did a 2-part program about 2 years ago dealing with the issue of shyness and how to deal with it, how to handle it. But some people don't ask questions because they are shy. They are afraid that they may ask the wrong questions. And therefore, people will think it's either they are rude or they are incompetent and they just are not learning. So to avoid the embarrassment, they just don't ask the questions. But the biggest reason why people hold back from asking questions is that most people most of us, including me and you, most of us just don't have the understanding of how beneficial good questioning can be. And because we don't know that, we don't use the tool of questioning. You've heard the saying, if you don't know the function of a thing, you will abuse it. Because we don't know the benefit of asking questions, we don't pay attention. Because if we understand the benefit that accrues, that is attached to asking questions, our way of speaking, of talking, of conversing, of negotiation will change. What do I mean by that? We will end most of our statements and sentences and conversations not with full stop, but with question mark. We will leave the other party going away and still be thinking on what we've said, because we've left the conversation rather with a question mark, rather than a full stop that they can just close the folder, shift it down the corridor, and go to the next one. If you don't ask, you don't get. Number 2, asking a lot of questions unlocks learning and it improves interpersonal bonding. Asking a lot of questions, it unlocks learning and it improves interpersonal bonding. You see, questions are powerful tools that if and when they are applied and used correctly, the benefit is just outstanding, especially when you find yourself in a circumstance or in an environment, in a conversation, in a meeting where asking questions is like going against the norms. When you are supposed to just provide answers and not ask questions, that is the best time. That is the best time to just expand and just wow your mind and open your brain to learn and just leave the people you are interacting with a lasting memory that they can never forget. For instance, if you go for a job interview, it's in the name. You are being interviewed for the job. The ideal thing, therefore, is for you to sit across the table and answer the questions. And most of the time, when at the end of it all, the interviewer turns to the candidate and said, "Do you have any questions? Any questions for us?" Most of us will say, "No, I don't have any question." Because the environment, the setting tells us that I am here to answer your question, so I shouldn't be asking you. No, that's the time to ask. That's the time to unlock your learning. That's the time for you to leave an indelible mark in the hearts of those people. Because research has shown that the reason many people don't ask questions during interviews is because we all like to sell ourselves. We like to promote the good aspect of our CVs. We like to just paint a rosy picture of our careers, trying to impress the person that is interviewing us. And we do that to the point that we forget that before you are called for the interview, they are already impressed. That's why they invite you. Now it's not the time to oversell yourself, because in the process of overselling yourself, you don't pay attention to pick up things you can ask them, to prepare yourself of questions you can ask before the interview. When in actual fact, the quality of the question that you ask the interviewer leaves them with a better understanding of you, a better image of you, an inquisition about who you are after the whole interview is done, more than the answers that you gave. For instance, when you go for an interview and it comes to the point and they said, "Do you have any questions for us?" That's not the time to say, "Oh, thank God, this is over. No, I don't have any questions. I'm going." No, that's the time to say, "What am I not asking you that I should be asking? What do I need to know about you, about the organization, about the job itself, about the environment, about the trajectory of your trading that I'm not asking? What can you tell me? You sell me this organization, why I should be willing to come and work here." But you see, the norm says, no, this is an interview. You shouldn't be asking questions. That's the time to ask questions, because when you do that, you leave the interviewer with a conviction in their heart that this is the candidate we want. This is not just here to finish up and collect the paycheck. This person is here to add value to us. So, asking a lot of questions, especially in a seemingly familiar environment, it helps you to learn, and it helps you to leave a lasting impression on people. Also, you must learn to ask a follow-up question. A follow-up question. There is so much benefit in a follow-up question. Somebody said not all questions are created equally. But when you look at the 4 kinds of questions, the one we looked at before was the 4 types of questions. This is the kind of question. There is the introductory question. Hey, how are you? That's an introductory question. That's a conversation starter kind of question. Then there's a mirror question. So when you say, "How are you?" the mirror question is, "I'm fine, thank you. How are you?" That's a mirror. That's a reflection of the question that you've asked, and it's now being answered and thrown back at you. That's a mirror question. Then there's the full switch question, which is the one that changes the topic entirely. You're talking about weather, and suddenly the man is talking about football. And then there is the follow-up question. A follow-up question is a type of question that solicits for more information. And that is priceless. Follow-up questions. It's an art that you and I can learn. How to ask follow-up questions. Because when you ask follow-up questions, apart from the fact that it will open up and make the other person give you more information, maybe more than they are willing to share in the first place. Follow-up questions also tells the person you are conversing with that you are actually paying attention, you are listening, you are comprehending what they are saying. And the thing with follow-up question is you don't need to prepare them, because the answer to the questions being asked will give you the clue to what the follow-up question should be. There's no preparation required. It just happens. It's a natural thing. But the benefit of it is that it forces the other person to give you more information than they probably are willing to share. And the more information at your disposal, the more knowledge you have. When it comes to questioning, or this art of questioning, you must also know when to keep or when to ask an open-ended question rather than a closed-ended question. Oh, time. You see, naturally, none of us likes to be interrogated. And why is this? What about that? How is this? Nobody likes that. But some questions can force you to get an answer of yes, no, now, later, no, yes. Because they box you up into a corner. All you can do is one word answer. But open-ended questions, they counteract the tendency to give you a yes or no answer. Because they are like they are like the onion. You have to keep peeling off the layers. You have to keep peeling off the layers. You have to keep peeling off the layers for you to answer an open-ended question. The open-ended questions they are wellspring of innovation. There's so much that can come out from that well. But close-ended questions, usually people answer them without revealing anything. And in most cases, the answer is biased. For close-ended questions, people are not, there's no room to give you more than a yes or no. And in most cases, even the yes or no is biased. A study was done where parents were asked, what do you think is the most important thing for your child to prepare them for life? What is the most important element you think your child will need to prepare him or her for life? Most parents just answered, because it's a multiple answer questions. Most of them said, oh, the best thing will be for my child to be able to think for themselves, which is good. It's a good answer. But you see, when that same question was then turned around from being a close-ended question to become an open-ended question, the same set of parents, 60% of them, when they answered, said, oh, just give my child the opportunity to think for themselves. When the questions was reframed as an open-ended question, only 5%. From 60%, only 5% gave the same answer. Why? Because the closed-ended question limited them to what is available, what is on the table. But the open-ended question allowed them to think wider, to examine bigger, to like we said, zoom out and see more of their answers before they were given. When you ask questions, one of the intricacies of questioning is that if you don't get the sequence right, if you don't line it up properly, if you don't arrange it in the proper sequence, you will not get everything out of it that you intended to. The optimal order of your question determines the answers you get, and it also depends on the circumstances. So the same question could be asked but differently from different people because of the circumstances in which they are. For instance, when you are questioning somebody, especially in a tense environment, the best thing to do is to make sure you ask the toughest question first. If it's in a tense environment, for instance, in a disciplinary environment, or from in an environment that is very tense, that's not the time to ask, so what movie did you see last night? No, you've lost the battle. Ask the toughest question first, because what it will do is it will open up the person. Once they are able to answer that first toughest question, the rest they will think, well, I've already answered the toughest, so this rest is okay. And so they will follow it up with correct answers as much as possible. When you ask somebody, for instance, have you ever had a fantasy of doing something terrible to someone? Now, that is a question that is slapped in your face. If they are able to answer that, when you then ask them, for instance, have you ever called into the office to say you are not well, you can't come in even though you are well? They've looked at that and compare it to the first question. They think, oh yeah, that's lighter than the first one. Since I've answered the first one almost correctly, then it won't cost me anything to just say yes or no on this one. But you have to gauge and weigh and measure the circumstance before you line your questions in that order. Because if you ask the toughest question under the wrong environment and the person locks up, that's it, you won't get anything out of it. You have to be mindful of the environment. Also, you have to pay special attention to the group dynamics that you are in when you are asking questions. The answers that you will get is also dependent on the dynamics, especially in a group setting, of how the question is put and what the first answer is. For instance, if you sit with a group of people and you ask them, let's use the question, have you ever had the fantasy of doing something terrible to someone like we did before? If you ask them, and the first person said, oh yeah, some of the things I've thought about, I mean, some of the things some people are, if looks can kill, they'll be dead, gone. I mean, if you just let me bear what I'm thinking in my mind towards that person. And if that is the first answer you get, guess what? More people will come out to tell you what they thought, the way they want to strangle their neighbor's dog and kill their cat and smoke their whatever. Because the first response is a floodgate opener. In the same way, if you are not careful, if the first response is that of, I know what I'm thinking, but I'm not sharing that with you in this place. Not with all these people looking at me. I mean, what do you think I am? I'm not saying nothing. Once that first response is locked, the rest will follow. What am I saying? It is important for you to gauge the group dynamics within which, or the environment in which you are asking the questions. Because it will determine what you get out. And finally, as I close tonight, remember, we're talking about the art of asking questions. The opposite of asking question is getting answers. So when you are in a position that you are now the one being asked the question, not you asking, somebody else is asking you, give your best response. Always give your best response. See, a conversation, a question and answer session is like dancing. Both parties must play their part, must move at their own turn, but must move in sync for there to be progress. It is a push and pull, push and pull, push and pull type of thing that you have to have. But the way you ask the question, the way you ask or the type of question you ask will solicit whether the person is going to be truthful in their answer or not. Answering questions requires you at every time, every point, anywhere, anyhow that you are asked a question, you are caught between two places. You are caught between maintaining your privacy and keeping some things to yourself and telling the truth or being transparent. You are always judging between, okay, how far on this road of transparency can I go without compromising myself? How much of myself can I reveal without overexposing myself? So you are always juggling between telling as much truth and still maintaining your privacy or your benefit or whatever. You are always asking yourself, should I answer this question? If I answer this question, how much information should I give this person? What should I do when this question is asked? If I answer it truthfully, will that expose me to litigation, for instance? Would I then have to go and sit before the panel and say, we heard what you said on BBC News last night. Can you explain what was the meaning of that? So whether you are going to be private or you are going to be transparent, you have to draw the balance, because whichever way, there are benefits and pitfalls on both sides. But you see, what will help you is that because you have learned the techniques, you have mastered to a degree the art of asking the questions. When it is your turn to give the answer, you can almost psychologically lock into the mind of the person asking the questions so that you can then use that to answer them. But if you don't know how to ask questions, ask the right questions in the right sequence, using the right tone, in the right settings and the right group dynamics, you will fall flat on your face in an attempt to be truthful, in an attempt to be transparent. You will expose more than you are supposed to, and it will bite your heels hard. Ladies and gentlemen, this life that we live is a life that involves interactions with a lot of things, a lot of people, other entities. But one of the vehicles by which we transcend this journey is being able to ask the right question at the right time from the right people in the right setting, so that you can get the answer that will add values to you, that will benefit you, that will help you to go further and increase your knowledge and expand your horizon. But if you have not learned how to ask the right question, remember what I said at the beginning. The answer you are looking for, the solution to that issue, the breakthrough that you are believing for, it's not far. All of them are just hidden underneath the layer of the question that you have not asked. Go and ask the question. Go and ask that question. You know what that question is that is on your heart, that's been bugging you, that you've been thinking about. Go and ask. You've been seeing this person for the past 3.5 years, but you're wondering, shall I ask? Shall I ask? Just ask. The worst that will happen is he or she will say no. But what if they say yes? But you won't know until you ask. Don't wait and be afraid of your boss. Go and ask, boss, been doing this work for the past 5 years. When are we going to get some salary increment or promotion? When is the next interview coming up? Go and ask. But most importantly, ask yourself those questions that you know you need to talk to yourself about, but you are avoiding them. You're shying away. You are making excuses. You are running from them. You are hiding behind your own fingers. No. Ask. Ask. Even the Bible said, if you ask, then you will receive. If you don't ask, you don't get. Thank you so much for being part of tonight's program. I hope I have left something in you or with you that will help you move closer to becoming that better man and better woman. Because ultimately, that is my heart desire for you. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.